Well, this was kind of a tragic thing. My dad would hire guys and he would have them live on the farm with us. We had a little building in the back. This one guy who lived in the back, he got a phone call and he had to run up to the big farmhouse. And he ran, and I heard a big crash. He ran right through one of those 4-foot panes of glass. And I'm a little boy watching this going, And
So tell me how you met your wife.
I had joined the choir thinking, this would be a good way to maybe meet the ladies. Well, there were no ladies my age in the choir. But anyway, I got a good view of all the ladies out on the church. I'm up there singing one day, and Glenita, my future wife, she's sitting in the audience next to her brother, Greg. She nudges him and says, hey, who's that dude up in the choir? He looks at her and says, I don't know, but you're going to marry him. April 30th, 1976. That was our first date. We sat up in the rafters of Olympia Stadium, and I give my future wife our first kiss right there up in the rafters. And she was like, whoa, like this. And I thought I did something wrong, but I think she liked it.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another Kepta interview. Today we have the opportunity to talk to Thor Olafsson II. So let's just start right out. Can you tell me a little bit of what life was like in your childhood? What was the world like? What are some memories you have?
I grew up on Long Island in New York till I was 5. I do remember being there a little bit. As time went on, Mom and Dad ended up moving to Michigan. The place that my parents bought was not the best. It was very, the house was a big old farmhouse with a big red barn in the back, which was kind of faded. And Dad bought 40 acres, which was kind of nice for me as a little boy. I was the 4th child of my mother. My mother had 3 kids before me with her first husband. After her 3rd child was born, he tragically died under a bulldozer of all things. He was driving it on a trailer and it flipped over backwards on him. She met my dad within the year and married him, and then I came, and then I had a sister and a brother, so there were 6 of us. But I do remember one time, well, this was kind of a tragic thing. My dad would hire guys and he would have them live on the farm with us. We had a little building in the back that had a bed in it and a stove and this and that, so somebody could live there. And this one guy who lived in the back, I call it a little cabin in the back, he got a phone call and he had to run up to the big farmhouse. Well, the big farmhouse had big door walls, 8-foot door walls with like a 4-foot panel on each side. Well, that's plate glass. That guy got a phone call. He came running up and he ran, and I heard a big crash. He ran right through one of those 4-foot panes of glass. And I remember seeing that guy. He was alive, but he got cut up pretty good, and they bandaged him, they took him to the doctor. And I'm a little boy watching this going, but I do remember that happening. That was more of a tragic thing. A 14-year-old sister, there was Alice, who was at that time probably, we're all 4 years apart. So 14-year-old sister, 18-year-old brother who had gone back to New York, to our same area by then. And then my older sister, who was like 22 at the time. But my sister Ann was still living at home. And one day I'm a 10-year-old little brother says to my 14-year-old sister, you want to learn how to drive? She says, what? How do you know how to drive? I said, well, I find those old cars back in the field Dad abandons, but I put some gas in them and put a battery in. They start. So I've been driving this one car all around the field. Would you like to learn how to drive too? Why, sure. So little me got in the passenger seat. I put her in the driver's seat, and she just put her in gear. She followed my instructions, and up and down the hills and through the 2-lane, the cow paths we went, and he learned how to drive that day, an old Pontiac station wagon. It was a lot of fun.
What did your childhood do to influence you with what you wanted to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah. Well, growing up, Dad was a big disciplinarian, and he always wanted us to do chores around the house. So every once in a while, he'd bring a big dump truck full of wood with nails in it and dump it in the back next to between the house and that old cabin where that guy came running up and got all bloodied. I'd have to sit there with a couple of sawhorses and grab a piece at a time and pull nails. I had a big crowbar and a little hammer, and I was just pulling nails. I was 8, 9, 10 years old, pulling nails. Hated when he brought that big old pile of wood. I'd get down to the last few pieces, and all of a sudden that dump truck would come in full of more nails. more lumber with nails in it. Well, I learned how to stack lumber at that time, and I really didn't want to do much with lumber. Back then I was tired of it, but as time went on, Dad would take me to work in the summertime. As summertime would come, we'd all be let out of school. Kids would be in Little League Baseball, and Dad, I want to sign up for Little League Baseball. No, you're going to work on this is summertime. I have you to work with me. My dad had quite an accent that's similar to his accent. I want you to come to work. So I would have to come to work, and the kids got to play Little League. My friends, I wished I could have played Little League, but that wasn't in the cards for me. Shaping me for the future, okay? Here we go. What did I become? I became a carpenter. Something I really didn't care for as a kid, but I did it good. I wanted it to be good, and unfortunately, my dad was not a real detail man. He's the kind of guy that we'd go on a job in the morning, and we'd get started, and he'd show me, how to dig this ditch, and he'd do digging for about 15, 20 minutes, and I'd be standing there waiting and then he'd say, well, here's a shovel. I have to go and check all the jobs, and I'll see you later. Well, it wouldn't be till the end of the day he'd show up, or maybe he'd show up with a hamburger for me for lunch or something, but I'd be digging, he'd show, oh, you're doing a good job, son. But that was in my early 12, 13, 14-year-old days, and he'd just take me to work with him. We'd be doing something in construction.
So tell me how you met your wife. Tell me that story.
Oh, well, we got to go back a little ways before we get to meeting. Glenita is her name. I'm back at that little Andersonville church, okay? Junior high, 14 years old. My mother used to be a sponsor. She'd stand up in front of us, 15 kids once in a while. I always sat in the back. She says, you had the worst face. You sat in the back, you look so mean. I didn't want to be there. I knew what I needed to do. I needed to be right with God because He had come into my heart, but that little Holy Spirit, I wasn't listening to Holy Spirit very good. Well, anyway, I finally did start listening to that Holy Spirit, and probably about, I know exactly what it was. It was New Year's Eve of my 18th birthday. And there was a pastor who came. It wasn't our normal pastor, it was a special speaker. And he came and spoke to, there was probably 60 of us that ended up going. And I sat in the back. He was preaching, and that man's eyes were just kind of like laser beaming right on my two eyeballs. And I'm going, son, are you preaching to me? And afterwards, everything he said, I heard. And afterwards, I didn't just bug out of the church. I hung around, kind of walking back and forth, just chatting with, a few of the people here. And then I looked at him, and my feet just kind of wandered right up to him. And I'm wondering, what am I doing? And I stood there and looked at him, and he says, you need to talk to me, don't you? I said, I sure do. He said, well, let's go sit over by here. And he talked to me about Jesus and about how committed I was to Him, and I wasn't that committed. And he says, you need to really just set something straight. You need to get something set in stone for right now about Jesus. I said, I sure do. He says, well, let's just pray, and let's just ask Him to give you the strength to trust Him daily and for the rest of your life. And that's what I did. Right then and there, I knew that was the decision. So there was that decision made. Following Christ. Now, then I started leading songs in front of that church. I was the song leader. And for about 6 months I did that. And looking out, and all of a sudden I'm heavy yearning. I want to date somebody, a Christian girl. But there's no Christian girls in 60 people. There was a 9th grade girl. I could tell her parents, oh yes, this is the man for you, our 9th grade. And I'm thinking, that girl's too young. So I told my pastor, I said, Pastor Duncan is his name. Pastor D, I'm bugging out, sir. I got to go where there's some ladies for me. I want to get married. Well, you're only 19, or we need you here. And I left. Walked into this church, Waterford Community Church, and it was kind of nice. Got exposed to all them. It went from a church of 60 people to 600 people. And I'm going, whoa, a lot of people to meet here, but it was a lot of fun meeting them. getting to know everybody. And, you know, it was a couple months in, and I had joined the choir, thinking this would be a good way to maybe meet the ladies if I joined the choir. Well, there were no ladies my age in the choir. I wish there was, but anyway, I got a good view of all the ladies out on the church when I was in the choir, in the loft, singing to everyone. But I was kind of shy. Anyway, I'm up there singing one day, and Glenita, my future wife, was home on leave from Moody Bible Institute, and she's sitting in the audience next to her brother, Greg. And she nudges him and says, "Hey, who's that dude up in the choir? Who's that fellow up in the choir?" Sorry, I'm saying all my lingo. You got to know Greg. He's very dry. He's very 3-word answers, 20 words in an evening. He looks at her and says, "I don't know, but you're going to marry him."
Wow.
So and she did. She married me. I ended up gravitated to like a magnet coming to her. Woo. She a little while later, maybe a month or so later or two, she came home from Moody. They come home in April or something like that. And there's a thing for the college and career that, there was 40 or 50 of those kids in there, and they were inviting. And I don't know, this is the first night I'd ever gone to that. Maybe it was a one-time function or something, but I went in the door, she was greeting people. And she greeted me, and I looked at her and thought, wow, neat girl. And I was looking at everybody else over, but that's the first time I met her. I'm thinking I'm kind of liking her, and I'm thinking of all the people that we were hanging with. I like the guys; they were fun. We played basketball and this and that. But the girls, she was starting to become the number one that I was really looking at. And I looked her over and I said, I want to date this girl. What do you think, Lord? Lord, what do you think about this? Is this girl the one for me? And he says, ask her out. So I asked her out to a John Denver concert back April 30th, 1976. That was our first date. We sat up in the rafters of Olympia Stadium. Then I give my wife, my future wife, our first kiss right there up in the rafters. And she was like, whoa, like this. And I thought I did something wrong, but I think she liked it.
She must have. So how many kids do you guys have together?
We've had 3. I didn't want this to sound like past tense, as if one of them had passed. They haven't. They're still here.
How has parenting them shaped your life?
Wow, that's deep. It's a big responsibility when you have that first child and you're holding that little one in your arms and you're thinking, whoa, how am I going to do this? But then you look to God and say, and he'll whisper, don't you worry, I got you covered. So you just hug them tight, and give them all kinds of kisses and watch them grow up, and then all of a sudden they're going away from you and doing this and that, coming back and bandaging cuts and this and that. But time goes on, and they get like I did. They want to find a spouse.
What is something that you miss from your past that you don't have anymore? Or that doesn't exist anymore, maybe?
Candy Apple Red, 1969 Honda SL90. Bought that thing. My dad let me buy this motorcycle so I could ride it all over his 40 acres. That thing was sweet. I miss it.
Okay, so you said 1969. Do you remember the moon landing?
Oh, yes.
Did everybody think it was real back then? Because right now there's some controversy.
Yeah, everybody thought it was pretty real. That was a great time for our country. We felt proud. We felt very patriotic that we would be the first on the moon to plant the flag. It was a good thing for us down in the Detroit area. We had just gone through in 67 and 68 very tumultuous times with riots, and it was tough. But to have that happen was pretty neat. And there was something else going on at that time. There was the Vietnam War, and my older brother was off across the sea. He wasn't in Vietnam, but he was serving in Cambodia, and we were praying for his safety. Couldn't wait till he could get home, which he did get home. He came back in one piece, thank the Lord.
Did you ever want to go into the war?
I did. I wanted to be a Green Beret. There was a new song that came out just about that time. It was called The Green Beret. It had some good words. Got young men like me excited to go serve their country. But my dad told me when I was early, 13, 14, 15, you will not go and sign up for this draft, or I'm going to ship you to Iceland and hide you. Oh, that's the wrong thing to say to me, because that's when I first stood up to my dad and said, no, you won't. I'm an American citizen. If my country calls, I will serve. And my country did call. I was drafted. And I drove to the enlistment building and went in there and stood in front of the secretary, and she said, what are you here for? I said, I'm here here's my draft notice. She said, oh, President Nixon just abolished the draft, so you can turn around and go home. I said, what? Okay, and I'm thinking, no more Green Beret. But as it turned out, I've played paintball with people, and I always get out the first one, so I probably would have been the first one dead on the field of battle in Vietnam too, so I guess I'm still here.
That's good. You said you were going to be a carpenter. How did your career journey go?
As I got older, I realized I prepare for when I was a senior in college. You know, when you're in high school, they start taking you in the counselor's office, 10th, 11th grade, and talking about colleges. And that sounded okay to me, but I never really followed up to get, after my junior year, to start getting visits to colleges, which most of the other kids were doing. So I graduated from high school, and I needed to make money, okay? And I had been learning about carpentry from a lot of my dad's workers. My dad was an okay worker, but he was more of a jack of all trades. He never really worked on the job very often with us, but I would learn from his workers, so I became pretty good at it, and I kind of liked it. I liked nailing walls together, and I liked carrying wood and seeing how it and all of a sudden this thing started going up around me, and there was a big roof, and I could climb on the roof and nail nails in. It was like, my word, a young man's best time in his life, We're building a house and we're having fun at it. So I became a carpenter at 18, and my older brother, who came back from the war, he started a carpentry company, and he asked me if I'd like to work for him, and I came to work for him, and I worked for 2-3 years, and he said, would you like to become my partner? And I became his partner, and we worked together for another couple of years, and all of a sudden there was a time in the economy and the nation where we had a downturn. It was 1979-80. It was right before Ronald Reagan was sworn into office. My brother went to Florida because there wasn't much work in Michigan, and I stayed up here. I was going to go to Florida and be with him, but I did not go. The Lord had us stay here for a reason. He wanted us to be around. At that time, I started my own company. Slowly but surely, Ronald Reagan's economics started to bring us out of the recession, and I started to get more and more jobs, and my company started off slow, but North End Builders, that's the name of it, did real well in the Clarkston area from, when did I start that company? 1977, and we mothballed it in 2020.
Or do you have any stories of what it was like building the houses and stuff?
Hundreds of stories. Some good and some bad and some tragic and some happy, and oh my word, you name it, we got it. One of the times I really liked being on the crew was 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock break time. We'd sit there on the lumber pile and munch down a donut or two, sip on a coffee. We always sent the low guy on the totem pole on the carpentry crew. It was his instructions to take a piece of wood and write down on that piece of wood what every person would want from the party store if they didn't bring their lunch or their break time snacks. There's one young man, his name was Cal. We sent Cal to go get some break time snacks. Cal had only worked for a couple couple weeks, and he drove a little blue Bug, little tiny Volkswagen Beetle. And he went to get the stuff. It was kind of a wintry day, cold and dreary. And he went and he got the stuff, and I remember seeing that little blue Bug kind of come up the street and park right in front of the job site. And I thought, well, why isn't he parking where he parked before? And roll down the window, I saw the bag go, and the bag dropped on the ground. Bloop. He dropped the bag on the ground, and then he proceeded to slowly drive away. And I never saw him again. He quit right then and there.
Hey, at least he got you the snacks.
That was like, hey, he didn't even say goodbye, you know. That's what the guy said. They weren't mean to him or anything, but it was just, he wasn't cut out for that type of work.
So what ended your carpenter career?
Well, I was getting toward the end of it as time was having it. I had an accident, really, to sum it up. Had an accident where I fell off a roof, and therefore you can see my new legs. So, fell off a roof and broke my back and became paralyzed. And that pretty much, probably for the next couple of years, I ran my company out of this wheelchair. And I had a superintendent. His name was Scotty. He was a very nice man. Good old Scotty. We'd get it done. But as time went on, we decided it was time to stop. And I encouraged Scotty to do his own thing.
So how has life changed now that you can't walk anymore?
Oh boy, lots of thoughts about that one. Well, in one respect, life has not changed. The greatest respect, Jesus is still on the throne. He's still my Savior. I'm still going to heaven. I might even gone to heaven a little sooner, but he kept me around for some reason, for my wife. She's glad I'm still here. Even though she's got so much work to do, I feel so bad for her. I used to chip right in and do as much as I could, but now she runs the whole house, the outside, inside, me, all events. But she gets a lot of help from our daughter. We live over by our daughter in Grand Rapids now, picked up from Clarkston after living there for, from 1959 till 2020.
What was like a big turning point in your life?
But I'm 30 years old, and the first thing I like to do in the morning, no matter what the time of day, what time of year, wake up, 5:30, 6 o'clock, get out to the street, and hopefully right at the end of my driveway is the newspaper wrapped in something to keep it dry in case it was wet. And I'd bring that in and just crave to take that plastic off and open those pages and I'd see what the Detroit Tigers had done, or Detroit Lions, or Detroit Pistons, or maybe the hockey team, okay? I liked all the sports. I wanted to know everything about everything. And that's what I poured my life into just for that time. And one morning, when I went out and got that, and put that paper on the table, and all of a sudden, man, bam, on my shoulder, somebody said, "What are you doing?" And I go, "What?" Bam, again. "What are you doing?" Lord, it's you, isn't it? Oh, I know exactly what you're saying, Lord. I'm so sorry. I'm putting that rag. I'm putting that rag ahead of. I'm calling the newspaper a rag for you young'uns who don't know what the rag is. In front of my Lord. There's my Bible sitting on that little table over there, probably collecting dust. Just the beginning of the week, because I brought it to church every Sunday, and I read it occasionally here and there. Did I read it consistently every morning? No, I did not. But that morning, I turned the corner on that morning. Now, I looked at the Lord and said, "I'm sorry, but I will read that Bible now. Every morning. I'll try, Lord, if I can." And he's going, "Okay, we'll see what you do. I'll watch you." Can I take you a little further down the road? Now my boys are older, and they have seen me in the mornings, because they would get up and go to school, and those two boys, I think, were asked, what made you want to follow Jesus? Or maybe And they I think one or both of them both said, we watched Dad read the Bible in the morning. We wanted to be like him. The Bible's important to Dad. Well, I want the Bible to be important to me too, because I want to be just like Dad.
All right, so we're going to close it out with one final question. What advice would you give to people my age?
Follow Jesus. Make a commitment to Jesus Christ and stick with it. Ask Him to help you. He'll help you all through your life. I've done that. I ask Him to help me. I look into His Word. Just keep your life centered on Christ. Keep your relationships centered on Christ. Keep, from a kid growing up, centered on Christ. Don't do like me, halfway. Do it full. And then in the present where you're at, keep following Christ. And then for the future, pray for your future spouse to be godly too, and that you can walk together and raise up more kids for Jesus, more bodies, because there's a lot of us all over the world. And how many have accepted Christ? I don't know. How many has He chosen to know Him? We don't know, but that's longer. That's it.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being willing to sit down with us and talk.
That was fun. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.